It's my great pleasure to welcome here Dr. T. I've met Dr. T around 3 months ago when he came in Palo Alto to give a talk about nutrition, functional medicine, and other exciting topics. And since then, it helped me to understand what's happening when eating all kinds of different foods and helped me change my diet for the better. Dr. T is a board-certified nutritionist, board-certified in functional medicine, professor of functional medicine and nutritional sciences at the University of Natural Medicine. Today he will help us clear some of the myths about nutrition. So in the first part of the talk, he will give a general overview, and afterwards we'll have lots of time for questions. Dr. T?
My pleasure to be at the epicenter of the world, as I know it. Interesting to see what people here are using. Almost everybody uses Macintoshes, so I'm learning from that. I know what I should use now. The topic is obviously very broad. So we will just give you a few tidbits here and there, tips of the iceberg, so that you have enough time to ask questions. The most important thing is to redefine what nature is, because everybody is trying to sell you products. The products always have some name attached to them, like natural, organic, good for you, healthy snacks, high protein bars, high protein powders. We all want to buy products that we have been educated, or maybe more accurately, brainwashed to think are good for us. And sometimes the products are nothing more than a byproduct of a different process in the agribusiness and commercial food manufacturing industry. They simply try to use things that are not so good for us, give them a different name or a euphemism, so that we will start using them and feel good about ourselves while enriching their bank account. We have to always be cautious when we hear the word natural. Let's analyze what is natural. How do we know when something is natural? Has anybody here been foraging out in the great parks of this city, or just going somewhere in nature and eat something that grows naturally in the wild? Some of you have. That's wonderful. So you are beginning to know what natural really means. I'm not saying that all of us should go there right now and stop eating at the Google cafeteria, necessarily. I'm saying that we should just be honest with ourselves. What does it really mean to be natural? Is going to the cafeteria or to the supermarket or even to Whole Foods or to an organic food co-op necessarily a natural experience? Let's take, for example, the foods that are considered truly natural in the produce department. You buy a cabbage. Must be really good for us, right? Or broccoli, or cauliflower. These are really good cruciferous vegetables. They contain all type of phytonutrients that have been proven to help us fend off cancer and liver conditions and eliminate toxins and inhibit virus replication in our body. But are they really natural the way we buy them today? Unfortunately, they have been hybridized so much that many of their nutrients are lacking. And we want to believe that they are good for us, and indeed they are. They are among the best that we can find. But even the best has been adulterated by technology. Technology is wonderful on one hand. Who better than Google employees would know that? Technology is great. It communicates for us. It makes a global village. And it's a great way to get information to the public. But information can go both ways, for the better and for the worse. And anybody who wants to sell a product or a service will use this. Sometime it will be to sell things that are not so good. But if we look at the best foods, like the cauliflower and the cabbage, And we say that even they are lacking in a nutrient called I3C, indole 3-carbinol. A nutrient that was very, very easily found in those cruciferous vegetables in the past. But now we can barely find it anymore. And as a result, we are susceptible to various conditions that we were not susceptible to just 50 years ago or 100 years ago. We wonder why we have an epidemic of cancer, of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, especially mental and neurological disorders. We have more Parkinson, more Alzheimer, more senile dementia, more mood disorders, more schizophrenia, bipolar disorders. More people than ever are using antipsychotic drugs and mood-altering drugs and learning disorder-oriented drugs, all of which have been proven to be cumulatively toxic to the nervous system, to the liver, to the kidneys, to our digestive tract, to our immune system. Yet we feel like there is no other choice. Nobody is telling us that we have other options. The best option is obviously not to get to that point, but to learn what nature really is, what food should really be like in nature to give us the necessary nutrients and to avoid giving ourselves the commonly available or commonly present toxins, so that we don't start diverting from health, deviating from health, and going gradually and slowly and surely towards disease. There are thousands of scientific articles published about toxicology, about chemistry. Nobody can refute that science. We won't get into all the details right now. But so many chemicals, so many toxins that accumulate in our tissues ultimately have an effect. All the heavy metals that we are exposed to from the environment and from our food ultimately have an effect on our neurons. They are neurotoxic. They are mutagenic, carcinogenic. We need to be aware of this rather than shut up our own brain and tell ourselves we should not worry about this because it's too much to worry about. It is not too much to worry about. You can learn step by step how to avoid most of the common exposure stress factors that alter your physiology for the worse. Tonight we will have a lecture in the Smart Life Forum where we go in greater depth into some of those factors that we can modify fairly easily in our environment. And when I say environment, I don't just refer to pollution of the air and water and food. I'm talking also about the internal environment of the body, the ecosystem we have within us, with our digestive tract, with our brain, with our hormones. All of those can be modified, modulated, and improved to a more natural state simply by following some of the rules of nature. And isn't it wonderful that nature truly has no rules unless we break them? Until you start breaking nature's rule, you don't have to know anything about them. You don't need credentials. You don't need to have an MD, DC, DACBN, DFBM. You don't need to have all of those credentials behind your name. All you need to know is this from nature? Is this coming to our mouth, to our nose, through our skin, in its natural state? If it is, and if it's not modified, adulterated, emulsified, hydrogenated, stored, transported, hybridized, genetically modified, all of those alterations that are done for the food industry to extend shelf life, if we understand how those processes alter our food, change our exposure level to various environmental stress factors, as well as understand how our emotions, our mind, affects our hormones and affects how we interact with the environment, with other people, with ourselves, and how it changes our physiology, and how our activities, whether they are having good social life, good love life, having exposure to the sun, walking a little bit every day, how do those things that in nature would be taken for granted, how would those things affect your body for the better? How does elimination of environmental toxins, both from your environment and from inside your tissues where they have accumulated for so many years, how are those going to change your health for the better in a measurable, reproducible fashion? Guaranteed. This is not regular medicine where you have to tell people we can't guarantee anything. With this approach of functional medicine, which is based upon thousands of scientifically published studies and based upon the textbook of medical pathology, physiology, and biochemistry, when you understand how this is built upon the rules of nature, then you see how easy it is to improve our health, both emotionally, physically, and socially, and have a better life. When I come to places like this, and I travel around the world lecturing, usually we have a lot more time to get in depth into various topics, and there are 150 topics we can lecture about, covering every aspect of healthcare, medicine, nutrition. When we do that, we try to come together as a community and give people an opportunity to have support groups when they change their lifestyle for the better. And suddenly we see people who never had energy, who couldn't focus and learn and concentrate, who had brain fog regularly. We suddenly see people changing right in front of us within a matter of days or weeks. When people change the molecular input into their body, their biochemistry improves drastically, and suddenly they have a reason to smile again. I come from Jerusalem, Israel, where I had my share of traumas. I've seen a lot of things that affect a person's health from the emotional perspective, if nothing else. Of course, also from the physiological. And I saw that people are losing hope. They cannot have peace. They cannot have clean air or clean water. And they simply give up. I don't think that this is a wise eventuality. We don't want to give up. Many of us are still young and we want to live life to full vitality and longevity. Some of us have children and we want to see them grow up healthy. We don't want to see the statistics which say that right now every child that is born has a 50% chance of getting cancer within their lifetime. Many of them even before they reach age 20 or 25. Many of our environmental conditions have simply reached a point of an inevitable threshold. We crossed a threshold where our overall exposure to environmental stressors like electromagnetic fields, electromagnetic radiation, which are physics related. And the solutions come from physics, from science-based electric engineers. They come up with the solutions. I have a whole CD on that topic that explains for 2 hours some of the simple $1 solutions so that you can reduce some of your exposure to some of these electromagnetic phenomena, which have been shown to increase the risk of various cancers and affect our sleep capability, our overall energy production, our leakiness. Our tissues become retaining water, fluid, because we become leaky. Our brain allows toxins to come in because the blood-brain barrier is also becoming permeable as a result of these exposures. Of course, exposure to other types of stress. And I know that here, people who work at Google don't have that much stress in their life. You have a lot of things that are reducing your stress. Some of you are smirking, don't really agreeing with me, I guess. But I don't know why. It seems like you have a really nice place here. Good work environment. But even this work environment might cause some stress. The carpets probably have some type of chemicals in them that are coming into the air that you inhale. Maybe some formaldehyde, some polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. and other things that are stress factors. Let's face it, we are exposed. But if you give your body a chance, just give your body 30 hours every week. Just when you sleep, give your body a chance to recuperate. Clean the air, at least in your bedroom. Eliminate molds, at least in your home. Change your diet, at least when you do have control over it. Then you go below the threshold again, and you can tolerate a lot more of the environmental stress that we're exposed to. It's not so bad anymore. It allows you some more flexibility. And this is a step-by-step process. It does not have to be all at once unless you want to. You have support. We have various wellness chefing classes. We have free teleseminars online. If you go to thetruthaboutyourfood.com, easy to remember. The truth about your food, not my food, your food. That's how you remember it, thetruthaboutyourfood.com. There are 6 teleseminars that are free to the public. Each one is 1.5 hours to 2 hours, covering everything you really need to know about fats, proteins, carbohydrates and sugars, processed foods, in great detail that you would never heard before, I assure you. About supplements, the good, the bad, the ugly. About food that you should be eating. What are the top foods to eat every day, every week, so that you can assure yourself of better health. When you address these issues, you are guaranteed improved health. I cannot guarantee that one specific symptom would go away because that has to be addressed individually. But I can guarantee that if you do all those things, you will be healthier generally, and you will feel the difference. Because nobody will eliminate toxins from his or her brain and feel worse. Everybody feels better when they become cleaner. No ifs and buts about it. Clinically verified, proven, 100% of the time. Take the toxins out, meaningfully. In January, we will have a session, a work session, like a seminar of 4 hours that is dedicated just to how the body detoxifies, the scientific approach, what really happens in the body and how we can prepare it for a meaningful detoxification, proactive detoxification, and how we can do this in a period of about 90 days. It takes a long time for the body to detoxify. A lot of myths abound about detox. Lots of popular books and popular websites. Detox in 7 days. Detox in 1 day. Detox in a month. In 6 weeks. It's not possible. Those are all subterfuge designed to sell you cheap products under the guise of real detoxification. If you understand the physiology of detoxification, you'll see it cannot happen overnight. Things that accumulate in our tissues for years and years and years cannot be eradicated so quickly without damaging ourselves. The holistic health movement is sometimes risky because a lot of holistic practitioners simply believe everything they hear that sounds holistic and adopt it as if it's self-evident truth, when it has zero validity on a physiological basis. You have to be careful. You have to be healthy and smart consumers of holistic medicine, just like you are trying to be smart consumers of allopathic or drug-oriented medicine. You owe it to yourself because today with the internet, anybody can say anything. Products can make claims, and people can get away with it. But if it does not stand the test of biochemistry and physiology, it should be suspect, because if somebody makes a claim, they better be able to prove it. They better be able to support it with something, not just with 1 or 2 stories of success. We all have success stories. We need to have a system that is based on natural scientific principles that guarantees 100% of the people to be improved. Like I said before, it is not about chasing symptoms. It's about looking for causes for disease. The causes are revealed to us via the journals of toxicology, of clinical nutrition, peer-reviewed, scientific, objective studies that are not trying to sell you anything except for knowledge, information. Once you have that on your court, on your backyard, nobody could refute anything, nobody could dissuade you to buy something just because it sounds holistic. And many, many holistic health practitioners are at fault for catering towards this popular belief that anything that is not drugs and not surgery is necessarily panacea. It's not true. We have even greater responsibility in holistic medicine to do good science. Why? When you go to have a drug therapy, you know it's a toxic chemical. When you're going to have surgery, you know how traumatizing it is for your tissues. Why would you do that unless you really are suffering a lot? However, when you go to a holistic practitioner, you're looking for wellness. You're looking for improvement of health. You're not always as desperate. That's where damage can be done. Because sometimes the treatment is going to cause more damage than the condition that you're treating. You don't want to interfere with people's health unless you can be sure or certain that you're helping them. Whereas if they already suffer a lot, you can justify something aggressive, toxic, poisonous, and surgical. It's justified. It's okay to do that because otherwise the patient might die or suffer incredibly. Then it's okay to poison them. It might save their life. But with holistic medicine, you don't have that leeway. You must guarantee that what you're doing is scientifically proven to get people's health on the right path so they can move them towards optimal health and wellness. And that means you have to prove that that therapy is not causing any long-term damage. You can go to a chiropractor 2 times a week for the rest of your life. And some chiropractor who is a holistic practitioner will tell you that by going twice a week, you will improve your wellness. Is it really proven? No, it isn't. There's never been any scientific proof that having a chiropractic treatment twice a week for the rest of your life will do you any good. Therefore, the claim cannot be made. There have been some scientific studies showing that if you have an acute trauma, an injury, chiropractic would help for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. But everybody must make a living. Everybody must tell you that you have to come for more, or else they won't be able to survive. That's true for every profession. They are necessary 5% of the time, but they try to take over the remaining 95% so that they can have livelihood. It's typical for every profession, not just for chiropractic. Chiropractors do a good job, but oftentimes it has to be narrowed, limited. This is just an example of how people make claims about long-term improvement when they can't make those claims because there is no science to prove them. But what if it causes damage? What if you get unstable spinal joints over a long period of time? That means that you actually have been harmed in the name of wellness. And this is not to be accepted. That's why we need good science to prove what something is doing or that the claims are worthwhile in the long run, because we all are searching for health and wellness long term, not just for removing symptoms today. Tonight, the Smart Life Forum is at 7 o'clock, I believe. If you're interested in knowing anything about tonight's lecture, which will cover more in-depth functional medicine and some of the innovations and lab tests and science that comes with it, combining holistic thinking with scientific thinking, that is the medicine of the future. Thousands of doctors are starting to dabble at it, to get involved with it because it speaks the language of chemistry and physiology. They're interested in that. They want to help people. They're sick and tired of seeing the epidemics of chronic disease increasing like they have been under the guise of the healthcare system that is so broken in our country, where medicine is the most expensive in this country per capita than any other country in the world, yet we are at the last place in outcome of all Western modern countries. We spend so much, and all that money is wasted. We only get worse. We need a change, a real change, not just a make-believe change. If you want to have details about tonight's talk, you can ask Anna, who just raised her hand, or you can go to the website smartlifeforum.org. And Anna would also be able to tell you about the detoxification workshop that we will have in January when you want to start your year in a healthy manner. Clean up everything that you've done in the holiday season. And don't forget thetruthaboutyourfood.com. And you can also look at the website ecopolitan.com, as in ecological metropolitan, ecological solutions for metropolitan living, right? Ecopolitan.com has a lot of information, and you could then see some of the activities and hopefully become a part of this health and wellness community that we're trying to grow around the country and in other countries as well. I will now take some of your questions, because our time is short. Any questions?
So you mentioned that everything needs to be proven. You want to have scientific backing for everything, which is great because it's very difficult to separate the wheat from the chaff in this area. Are there scientific measures of wellness and healthiness that you refer to as, benchmarks where you can say, yes, we are actually getting healthier if you follow this? And could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, very good question. There are scientific measures, and they are included in the array of lab tests available through functional medicine. We can test the chemistry of your body, the metabolic pathways and products that come out through the urine, in the stool, the microbial environment in your gastrointestinal tract, the level of heavy metals accumulated in your tissues, etc. All those could be quantified, objectified, and remeasures, and they are reproducible tests approved by the American College of Pathologists. They are science-based, although I have to also modify your question and say, not everything has to be proven by science, but everything that has a claim attached to it should. Many things don't need claims. And science is not everything, and science evolves. But if we are making claims that are going to change people's behavior, lifestyle, activity, nutrition, we should provide them with some scientifically measurable criteria. Even if we don't always test for those things, which I mentioned earlier, we can do questionnaires about your symptoms. Symptom surveys, they are called. They are commonly used in the scientific literature. How do people feel? Do you think that there is even one scientific test to show how people's mood is changing? Objectively, they don't. They only ask people, how do you feel? And based on that, let's modify the dose. There's no science there whatsoever. Sometimes we have to use these criteria of how do you feel. But if a person who has been depressed for 20 years and suddenly is no longer depressed, they know it. They don't need scientific proof. And that's fine. If we have 20 people like that out of 20, that is a good outcome. And we can then publish it, or simply discuss it, explore it, share it among practitioners and with the public, so people know that they don't have to be depressed for life. They don't have to have anxiety. There are reasons. If you are magnesium deficient, you are inevitably going to gradually develop anxiety attack, panic attack, palpitation. Why not just take magnesium, which you are deficient in, and suddenly the symptoms disappear? How scientific is that? We can make it so, or we don't have to if the person feels significantly better and if it's reproducible. The important thing is if you are deficient, and most of us are deficient in magnesium to some extent, what damage have you experienced? Your pocket has suffered the loss of a few dollars because you bought a magnesium supplement. That's it. The rest of it is improved health because you overcome a deficiency state. And magnesium is important for hundreds of metabolic pathways and energy production pathways in our cells. That's based on science, even if it's not clinically proven necessarily in large, double-blind, placebo-controlled, randomized studies. But it is still science-based because it's based on biochemistry and physiology, which are irrefutable. And it's based on toxicology, which is irrefutable. If you look at the EPA website, look at any website of toxicology, environmental protection companies, and so on, and toxicology journals, you see how each and every one of those toxins is scientifically proven to be correlated, whether weak correlation or strong correlation, with numerous chronic diseases. Numerous chronic diseases. And therefore, eliminating those toxins is a no-brainer. You need to do it. Even if we can't prove that your specific symptom comes from that specific toxin, you need to eliminate the toxin as a side effect, you feel better. Isn't that a great side effect? That's what we should be looking for. Great, healthy side effect, not poisonous effects.
Hi, thanks for coming. Before you mentioned that there are some fundamental laws of nature that we're breaking, and that's ultimately what's causing all this harm. And I know it's a huge topic, but without going into too much detail, can you just name some top laws that we can kind of walk away with and think about?
Top laws of nature. First of all, I'm just a human being. Who am I to say what are the top laws of nature, right? I can only give you some ideas based on my experience and my foraging trips that I've done so many already to find out about nature. And I've studied anthropology quite a lot, especially paleoanthropology, to truly learn what our physiology requires for health. What have we been exposed to as we have evolved within our given environment, which also means that our chemistry and physiology is based on some common ground. Those common grounds are eat unprocessed food, for one. What is processed food? There's a 2-hour seminar what it is. But even transportation of food is processing. Storage of food is processing. Increasing its shelf life and wrapping it is processing. And the further away it is from its natural state, natural wild state, the less nutrition it provides, meaning it is less nutrient dense, and it is potentially more toxic. Potentially. So you need to get as close as possible to the food's natural look and feel, and as close as possible to when it was picked from the earth and in its wildest form. The more you go in that direction, the closer you are molecularly to the number one rule of nature. Number two is to arrange your life in a way that gives you satisfaction, identity, and emotional bliss without drugs, without artificial stimulants and other such street elements that people use because they are lacking the bliss. If you make the appropriate modification in your emotional state by processing all traumas so that you can handle your life today without guilt and inferiority and other negative emotions, that goes a long way towards the rules of nature, which include having family units, social units that were intact multi-generationally in one place. None of that fragmented family unit that we have today. So that's the second important rule of nature. The third rule is movement. In nature, we would be moving all the time in a healthy way. Therefore, our joints and muscles, ligaments, tendons, capsules in the joint, all of our connective tissue would be active, lubricated, nutritionally rich, able to detoxify through the lymphatic channels, and less likely to be injured. Today, we go from inactivity to weekend warrior, and we get injured all the time. One of the number one causes for doctor's visit is aches and pains associated with neuromusculoskeletal injuries, which lead inevitably to drug use. And when you take drugs for pain and aches, you start fooling around with your biochemistry, poisoning your liver and your brain, and going down a torturous, dangerous road. So those are very important 3 rules of nature. Another one is enjoy the sun. The sun is a part of nature, and we should not make it our enemy. There are thousands of studies about how beneficial sun exposure is to us. Nowadays, we're so afraid of the sun, and we're getting the highest number of skin cancer and skin disease that we ever did. We should go back to nature and trust nature more than we trust some so-called experts who change their mind every 10 years and trying to basically exist and justify their existence, so they keep making up artificial information that appears like it comes from expert voice. Do they really know better than millions years of nature? Millions years of exposure to the sun? Of course, be smart about it. Don't overdo it. Protect yourself. Have a hat. But also enjoy the sun. Get some vitamin D while you're at it. Or take vitamin D supplements during the winter, because in this part of the country, you will not make vitamin D for about 4 months of the year, even more than 4 months. Especially if you have haze or fog, which this place is notorious for, you will have, not in here? Okay, then this place is not notorious for it. Well, San Francisco is, okay. So you need to make sure you have enough sun exposure during the months that you can actually manufacture vitamin D. But most of you are deficient. People in Florida are deficient, so why wouldn't you? People in San Diego are deficient. I test them because they're my patients over there, many of them. They are deficient. You would be even more deficient. So sun exposure is important, and we came from the tropics. That's another rule of nature. Humans have developed to Homo sapiens sapiens in the East Horn of Africa, in the tropics. They had different types of food, exposure to the sun, and other elements than we have today. We have to understand the changes and modify our lifestyle appropriately so that we are closer to those conditions, even if we don't want to move to the tropics, because the tropics are not big enough to handle the entire population at the 26th parallel and north or south of it all over the world. We have to learn to live where we are, but make the modifications. So those are a few of the rules of nature. There are a few others. I hope you're getting something out of it. Definitely listen to thetruthaboutyourfood.com and check the other resources that we have available. You're welcome.
Hi. Is there a list of primary care doctors that follow the functional medicine techniques? And also, does medical insurance typically cover the lab reports and the detox type of work?
First of all, there are organizations like the Functional Medicine, the Institute of Functional Medicine, IFM, and you can Google them. Funny to say that here. You can Google IFM, And they have a lot of doctors who have taken their seminars. They receive continuing medical education credits for relicensure of doctors around the country. As I said before, thousands of doctors are starting to dabble at functional medicine in the last 15 years, but the IFM is your best resource for some of those doctors. Be careful though. A lot of doctors only make part change in their practice approach. They want to retain what they have done before, so they just dabble instead of go full-fledged, and therefore you might not get the full benefit. Unfortunately, you have to do your own investigation and call the offices and ask what is the approach. Are they trying to keep you as a patient for a long time? Are they immediately giving you hormones as therapy, which then requires of you to keep coming back every few months for prescription? Or are they trying to help you learn how to be as healthy as you can on your own so that you are not attached to them, so you can lead a healthy lifestyle by yourself? That's what most cost effective, but most doctors also need to survive. So you have to be cautious and do your investigation. Although there are many doctors who are listed with the IFM. And you can search for functional medicine on the internet. You'll see a lot of doctors who practice functional medicine to one extent or another. In tonight's lecture, I will expose some of the weaknesses and problems within functional medicine as well. The problems are not functional medicine because it's pure with its intent. The problem is how we practice it. Humans always spoil good things, as you know. In every profession, 99% gives the rest a bad name. You know that. Not just lawyers. It's true for most professions. So you need to find the ones who practice a profession in its most pristine state, whose goal is not to simply see more and more patients all the time, but to release them from care so they can become independent with resources that are allowing them to maintain their health with support. So the doctor does not see you again and again at exorbitant rates. You have to be careful. Let the buyer beware. And as far as insurance goes, some doctors who use functional lab tests will bill the insurance for you, and it might get covered. Some of it is so cutting edge that insurance is less willing to cover it. But if you have medical savings accounts, cafeteria plans, or flex accounts that you have control over your health-related expenditure, then it will be almost always covered. I hope that answers your question. Yes.
Hi, thank you for coming. I was wondering, are there any genetically modified foods that we should be cautious of?
Genetically modified foods should all cause us to be conscious. There aren't any genetically modified food that we should not worry about. All of them have been genetically modified, therefore we are all animal experimented with, like animals. Nobody knows the true effect because there have not been real long-term studies to show the outcome of this complete departure from the natural genomic structure of the foods we eat. Be aware that hybridization is different. Hybridized foods are not genetically altered, they're not spliced. They're still the result of two plants of the same family crossed between each other for improved, if we call it improved, of course, in quotation, features that will make those plants more sellable, more attractive, more tasty, more juicy, not necessarily more nutritious. That's hybridization. But genetically modifying foods means that you splice into the genome some of the DNA of bacteria, of viruses, of insects, and you end up with frankenfoods, something that we have never tested before, something that has different molecular structure because of the different expression of the DNA. And that can lead to molecular variations which can trigger allergic reactions for one. That one is already shown to be the case in clinical practice. A lot of people are developing more and more allergies to soy products, corn, especially because these are so prevalent in processed foods. Almost every day, if you eat anything processed, anything packaged, there's some soy and or corn in it because it's so cheap to add them to the food. And they cause major damage for numerous reasons I won't get into right now. But the GMO aspect of it is so prevalent that inevitably you'll develop some type of a reaction. And when I do lab tests for immune reactivity or sensitivity towards foods and environmental chemicals and molds, I almost always see that people who eat soy regularly are reacting immunologically to the soy and to the corn. So those are really important to pay attention to as GMOs. There are a few other GMOs that you need to be aware of, like some potatoes and some other seeds, and even things like papaya and some cherry tomatoes. You have to really be careful. Some of them you can still get organic varieties that are original or heirloom or un-GMO foods. If they label them as organic, it means that they didn't genetically modify them. But in the case of corn and soy, it's next to impossible to know, because even the organically grown ones are cross-pollinated with the adjacent fields where GMO has been planted. So, by the way, I do have a restaurant in Minneapolis called the Ecopolitan Restaurant. That's why the website is ecopolitan.com. And in that restaurant, we have 0 soy product and 0 corn product, 0 gluten, 0 wheat, and other gluten products, and only natural fruit as sweeteners. Not even fruit juice, but fruit as sweetener. It's the healthiest restaurant in the country. I recommend you look at some of the menus, and if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get a whole week of recipes as a gift. And last thing for today, one thing that I do when I travel, and I'll take a couple more questions if you have any and if the time is allowing it. When I come to every town, I also try to interact with people on an individual basis and help them in a way that most people won't be helped. Thing that I cannot do long distance through the phone or through the internet, I can only do physically, is help people with their skin. People who grow moles on their face or on their body, who have skin tags, who have lesions, birthmarks, warts on the mucous membrane or on the skin. People who have things growing next to their eye, on their scalp. Some of them can be pre-malignant, especially if it's around the face and on the back of your hands from excessive sun exposure. These things could lead to the development of cancer in the skin. And I like to remove them for various reasons which are listed in this flyer that you have received. It talks about different types of skin lesions and what causes them. Some of them from neurological reasons, irritation, some from hormonal causes. And having them removed is not just to prevent cancer. It is also to prevent neurological irritation. I have amazing stories about patients that have been treated this way. Non-surgically, non-medically, no pain, no risk of infection, guaranteed results. I come back here to fulfill this guarantee every few months. And I recommend that if you do have anything like that, rather than just say, well, I have to live with it because no doctor will take it off because the results will be worse than the original condition, I recommend that you have me at least take a quick look at it. I don't charge, to look at people's skin and tell them if something is risky or not, so they can be safe and avoid seeing expensive doctors just to have you be looked at. I don't charge to look at people, but if I do remove any skin lesion, there is a charge, and it's listed in here. And that is because I do need to somehow support my nonprofit activities. Most of the education is nonprofit. And that way I can support these activities. Either way, it's very reasonable, much cheaper than surgery, and because it doesn't hurt and doesn't poison and doesn't cut and doesn't leave scars, it's a no-brainer. People love it. They're always happy with the results, and I'm happy to provide them with such happiness. Just be aware of that, and if you're interested in that, also go to Anna. She takes appointments. As I said, just to look at your skin, I will not charge a penny, just for your own safety. There's no reason for people to allow any negative outcomes to develop in their skin. It can be prevented easily and pain-free. No more excuses to wait and wait and wait until it's too late. So thank you very much. Do we have time for another question or no? We're out of time. Thank you very much.